there's been a lot of hype around the Steelers' Super Bowl chances. Now, I'm not ready to hop on the Steelers Super Bowl hype train quite yet, but if they can beat the Baltimore Ravens this Sunday, it will be a step in the direction, or it will be a step in the right direction in terms of the Steelers being a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Because the Baltimore Ravens, to me, are the third best team in the NFL, right behind the Chiefs and the Detroit Lions. They've dominated a good amount of the teams that they've played on their schedule, like the Denver Broncos, who have proven to be a quality opponent. And Lamar Jackson is on his way to his third MVP. But as we all know, Lamar Jackson's kryptonite is the Pittsburgh Steelers. As a matter of fact, the Steelers are the only team in the NFL that has a winning record against Lamar Jackson. He's 2-4 all time against this squad. He has 4 touchdowns to 7 interceptions in his career against the Steelers. And the Steelers have sacked Lamar Jackson 4 times or more in the last 4 matchups. And when you look at how good the Steelers' defense has been this year, they've been really good against the run. Yeah, they've had a couple of games when the Colts and the Giants went off, but for the most part, this has been a consistent defense when it comes to slowing down the run game. The 4th in the NFL in rushing yards per game allowed, and you're going up against a Ravens offense that is averaging nearly 200 yards on the ground at 182.6 per game. They got the #1 run offense in the league. You got Derrick Henry, who not only leads the NFL in carries, but he's currently leading the league in rushing yards, over 1,100, and he leads the NFL in touchdowns. The Steelers obviously got to find a way to slow Derrick Henry down, which I believe they have the players to do so. Patrick Queen could be a really big X factor in this game for the Steelers, and he needs to have a big performance, because I haven't really seen a lot of good play out of Patrick Queen. He's been all right, but not what I expected for the amount of money that they paid him in free agency. And the good thing is that the Ravens really rely on Derrick Henry late in the 4th quarter of games, because what Derrick Henry is for Baltimore is their closer. He's the person who they go to close out games, because once you get into the final 7-8 minutes of the ball game, you don't want to tackle a guy like Derrick Henry, because he's so big, so strong, and you're already tired as it is running around trying to chase Lamar Jackson down, to where when Derrick Henry comes in, he just completely can take over the game at that point, because your defense is already depleted, and it helps the Ravens close out those games because they don't really have to rely on Lamar Jackson to do so. That's what their goal was with signing Derrick Henry. Not for him to really be the focal point of their offense per se every game, but to be able to close out tough games in the 4th quarter. That's what Derrick Henry is going to be for Baltimore in this game. This is going to be a tight game. This isn't going to be a blowout, because we know how this rivalry is. It's physical, a lot of hard hitting, and normally these games are pretty close. Last year when Lamar went up against the Steelers, a lot of people in the media scrutinized him for how he played, when, in all honesty, as a Steelers fan, Lamar played a good game. It's just that his receivers were letting him down. In this game, the Ravens receivers got to step up. You need a good game out of Zay Flowers. You need a big game from somebody else, whether that be Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. Maybe Deontay Johnson can get some revenge, because Mike Tomlin did throw a little bit of shade on him. Somebody asked Mike Tomlin during one of his press conferences, what's the game plan when you're going up against Deontay Johnson, somebody that you're very familiar with? And Mike Tomlin, like always, with this great quote, said that we're not ready. We're not really worried about anybody when the Ravens got so many weapons as it is. Why are we going to be worried about somebody who really isn't going to have that big of an impact on this game, because he's not going to be used that much? And that was true. Why are we worried about Deontay Johnson when, he's not really that big of a factor in this offense yet? Now, when the Steelers play the Ravens for the 2nd time this season, then we could be seeing a little bit more of Deontay Johnson. But as much as I love DJ, I'm not expecting him to be a major contributor for the Ravens in this game. So, of course, it makes sense for Mike Tomlin to not really pay that much attention to him. And the Steelers offensively, you know that ever since they made the quarterback change from Justin to Russell Wilson, this went from an offense that was scoring 20 points per game to 30 points per game with Russ. And he's been really good throwing the football downfield. You saw he pretty much had that game-winning touchdown to Mike Williams. Him and George Pickens have had a really good relationship. And when you're going up against this Ravens secondary, you're going to have the opportunity to get a lot of big plays in the vertical passing game, which is what the Steelers have done very well since they made the quarterback switch to Russ. And we saw what Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase did to this Ravens secondary on Thursday Night Football. And now, with you having Mike Williams on your squad, you got two big play wide receivers that are physical, have great size, great length, and they can win those one-on-one matchups downfield. They can come down with those 50-50 balls against a porous Ravens secondary. Now, one thing that the Ravens defense does well that's going to give the Steelers a little bit of room to be concerned is how well they are against the run. The Ravens currently have the best run defense in the NFL. They're allowing 73 rushing yards per game, which is outstanding. And the Steelers, they run the football more than the majority of teams in the league. And when you take away the run game from Pittsburgh, you make them one-dimensional because you now erase their ability to utilize play action, which is what Russell Wilson has done a really good job at. And now you force this to become a team that has to solely rely on Russell Wilson to win the game. And as good as what Russell Wilson has been, the Steelers haven't really asked him to have to carry this team to a win. Well, this might be a game where Russell Wilson has to carry the Steelers on his back. I'm not saying that he can't do that. But what I am saying that it makes it incredibly difficult when you got a guy who may not be what he used to be, and he has to go toe-to-toe with what should be the third MVP of Lamar Jackson's career. It's really hard to ask Russell Wilson to go toe-to-toe with arguably the best quarterback in football right now. So if the Steelers are going to win this game, you're going to need your defense to be able to hold Baltimore's offense to under 20 points in this game. If this becomes a shootout, and Baltimore is able to break this thing open and they get the 28, 30 points and the Steelers have to go toe-to-toe with them. Offensively, it becomes a shootout where they just got to throw the football to keep up. They're going to be in trouble because that's not the kind of team that the Steelers are. The Steelers are a team that if they're going to beat you, it's going to be because they can run the football and they can also throw it as well. They're not a team that can solely beat you just relying on the passing attack. And the Ravens do have a pretty good pass rush. They don't have any household names on their defensive line, but they do have Justin Madubuike. You do have Odafe Oweh, who has started to come on for Baltimore over the last couple of weeks. So with how good the Ravens pass rush is, and you still got an offensive line that's pretty young and it's been a little bit up and down, this could be a game where the Steelers find themselves having to rely on their defense to really come through for them. You're going to need TJ Watt to do what he does best, make game-changing plays, be able to keep Lamar Jackson at bay. And I got into it with somebody earlier who said that if the Steelers can force Lamar Jackson to be a pocket passer, then they win this game. That's an idiotic statement to me. Because as a Steelers fan, you got to at least respect how good Lamar Jackson is as not just a runner but a passer as well. He leads the NFL in touchdown passes and quarterback rating, and he has the best touchdown to interception ratio in the league. So if you give Lamar Jackson time to carve you up in the pocket, he's going to do so. There really is no way to stop Lamar. The only thing you can hope to do is contain him. As cliche as that sounds, Lamar Jackson is one of those players where he's going to make plays no matter what you do. You only hope that when he does make those plays, you're able to come back the following play and be able to have a big play for a tackle for loss or a big sack, which kind of takes away a little bit of that momentum from the Ravens offense. But once the Ravens offense gets going and they're rolling, they're really hard to stop. They can put 30 points up on anybody with ease. And Lamar Jackson, he's going to be really motivated to have a good game. He knows what people say about him when he plays the Steelers. He knows that people consider this team to be his kryptonite. So I really believe that the Ravens are going to win this game, but I do think that the Steelers are going to split the season series. But this game is going to show us a lot about just if the Steelers truly are Super Bowl contenders, because if the Steelers can win this game, then they create a little bit of distance for themselves in terms of the AFC North title chase. Because right now they're in first place in this division, but if the Ravens win, then they take that first place spot from them. And this also is a game that's going to kick off the toughest stretch of the schedule for the Steelers. The teams that they have to play to close out the rest of this year is going to show just if this is a team that can make a Super Bowl run in the postseason, because you got to play the Bengals twice, the Browns twice, and despite how down the Browns have been this year, you can't overlook anybody in this division. You also got to play the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs along the stretch as well. So the Steelers got one of, if not the hardest second half schedule in the NFL. Right now, you got out to a fast start, but the Steelers got out to a fast start last year, and they kind of crumbled down the stretch around this time. Remember, they got upset back-to-back weeks by the Cardinals and the Patriots, who were two of the worst teams in the NFL at that moment last year. So I could somewhat see the same thing that happened around this time last year happening again, with how the difficulty is about to ramp up for this team. Washington was more of a quiz. Now playing the Ravens this week is the midterm exam for the Steelers. Are they going to ace it with flying colors? Are they going to remain on top of the AFC North? Or are the Ravens going to get the best of them and Lamar actually is able to get one up on Mike Tomlin? We will see in this game. But before I can consider the Steelers Super Bowl contenders, I got to see what they look like against Baltimore, because Baltimore, to me, looks like they're going to be destined for a rematch in the AFC Championship with the Kansas City Chiefs for the second straight year in a row, which is why this is a big game. If you are one of those folks who believes that the Steelers can make a Super Bowl run, this game and the rest of the second half of this season is going to show us just how far the Steelers can go come playoff time.